Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to hopefully part 3 and the final part on my tutorial on how to do custom meshes for Baldur's Gate 3. Today we'll be talking about how to set up your mod and how to create custom items. This video, if the other two, you consider that low production value, this one's going to take the cake on that. I'm going to be rambling. I'm going to do my best to try to make my points as clear and concise as possible. I've done, God, I did, I can't even say it out loud. I prepared for this. I did a folder. I know it's very different than everything else I've done so far, but we're gonna be in this together. Okay, hold my hand. We're in this together. Let's get on with it. I've set up this tutorial folder, which will be available in the description as a separate download to help you all get started. It is based on the sample equipment mod by the lovely Antimax, without his 2 tutorial mods he did, which I believe are this one and this one. I would not have been able to figure out how to do this, so credit to him. Let's get started. Okay. So to explain a little bit about how these mod folders work, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. You've got your generated folder, your localization folder, your mods folder, and your public folder. I'm going to start off by talking about your mods folder. The mods folder, first of all, should have your basic metadata about your mod, quite frankly. This is something that comes pre-made for you using Antimax's tutorial. I think, excuse me, I'm getting text messages. This comes pre-prepared if you use Antimax's or my tutorial folder. I think you can use Padme's mini tool to generate one for you, which is really nice if you are new to all of this. But I'm just going to show you everything you need to edit when you make your own. Okay, so first of all, author. You need to put your own name here. I put my full online username here instead of just Drew. Here, you can ignore character creation level name. You don't need that. It's just a value that needs to be there. Description, that's the description of your mod. This is information that's going to show up in the mod manager. So it's not going to show up anywhere else. So keep that in mind. I just labeled this a mod base. The folder, this is, the folder name I use basically everywhere in the tutorial base folder. You need to change that, but keep in mind that when you change that, you change the pathing for everything, basically. It'll make sense a bit more in a second. All of these other parts, you can just leave them in. They need to stand empty. Name, this is the mod's name. I just decided to name it the same thing as the folder, because that's what came recommended by Antimax. Num players, I believe this has to do with how many players are in a campaign. I don't know, it said 4, so I kept it as 4. And you need to generate a new UUID. UUIDs, if you have never heard about that before, is something you need to generate a lot when you're doing mods. The way you do that is you use the mod as multi-tool, and you click generate right here. I'm not going to fill this one out because this is something for you guys to fill out, but this is where you would then input that. Make a new one for each mod. So you can't keep the same one for This is basically what how do I say this? You can't have the same UUID as another mod. That's just how it has to be. Version number, that's for people who are updating their mods. Same thing goes for here, and everything else is just left empty. When you're done, remember to save. Okay. That's that part of the folder explained. Let's move on to the next part of the folder. The story. This thing comes pre-prepared by Antimax as well. But yeah, that's everything for that folder. Okay, next up, we're going to have a look into the generated folder. Now, the generated folder goes generated, public, tutorial, in my case, True Tutorial. This should also be renamed to whatever your mod is named. Assets, and this folder is empty. Now, this is where we're going to be putting in our mesh we made and our textures we made. So let me go and find those. Okay, I have copied over all of our assets. Again, let me zoom in so you can see. So I've got these files you may not recognize. This is because these are my source textures. I have them for my cleric outfit, so I had to copy those over. Then I've got my chain shirts, BM, mask cloth, normal map, PM, the pouches, BM, mask cloth, normal map, and PM, and the same thing for the skirt. In addition, I've also got our meshes in GR2 format. I've already given all of these names that make it, easy to identify. And I'm just going to keep that. All right. So basically, assets is the folder where you keep your textures and your meshes. I believe you can also make more folders here if you want to keep this a little bit more nice and tight, especially nice and tight. Christ, sorry, nice and tidy. If you have got a lot of different meshes set up. Yeah. Let's move on to the next folder. Public. Okay. Car just went by my window. This is where we get into the bit more complicated stuff. I'll explain the localization folder at the very end, because that's when it'll be relevant. Same thing goes for the game folder that has to do with your UI. In a public folder, which again is going to have a folder that has the same name as all the other folders that we've talked about as well. You're going to find assets, content, GUI, root template, and stats. Assets, this has the texture for your icons, which again is going to be relevant later. Content, assets, characters, and in pack armor, these two files are your bread and butter. These are very important. And then you've got your UI. This is where you set up the information for your UI icons. You'll have to, we'll go over this when we go over making UI icons and all that. Well, not making UI icons, but how to set up icons. Yeah. And then you've got, again, GUI that has, again, to do with icon items. And then root template, which is really, really important. Yeah. I think we've just about talked about what is important. Stats generated and treasure table. These are all things we'll discuss later. So yeah, I think I'm just going to go right into it. One important part to remember is that in your generated public, your folder name assets folder, the file format name, so DDS and GR2 needs to be capitalized because it is case sensitive when you pack it. So you may be used to, when you just throw something in your Baldur's Gate 3 generated folder, you might be used to, oh, well, it doesn't matter. But when you are packing it, which you are going to be doing when you make a mod, it is very important. So remember that. If you're running into issues, double check by clicking rename if your file format is capitalized. Okay, so we start off by going inside public, your folder name, content, assets, characters, pack armor, and then opening up, in my case, in the tutorial folder I gave, it's called tutorial _meshes LSX. Open that up with Notepad. I've tried my best to leave these little notes here and add notes where it's necessary. Yeah, the first thing you have to do is you have to generate a new UUID. So you might be wondering, what the hell am I doing here, Drew? What's going on? What you're doing right now is declaring your custom mesh as a mesh that exists in the visual bank of the game. That means that it is an asset that the game can use. As it says right there. I'm going to link this now. This name right here, I'm just going to be telling it what the name of our mesh is. It's not important, it's just a note, but it's a good way to keep track of it for yourself. So I went ahead and named the custom mesh we did human, female, arm, Drew, tutorial, full. I tend to call it full a lot when it's a torso mesh. And we're going to set that name here as well. As you also saw, I generated a new UUID. I actually wonder about this one where it says material type value 13. I've had an issue in the past where the more LODs I had it messed up the materials the more it had. So I'm wondering if I set that higher, if that will allow it to read more materials. I will test that out in my free time and add it as a comment on here if I remember. Okay, continue on. Basically anywhere where there isn't a note, it's not something you need to mess with. Slot, this is basically if you wanted this to be, for example, footwear, you'd have to change that. I don't have a an overview on how to type out, like, you know, you can't just write boots and then expect it to show up in the footwear slot. I don't have like an overview over which names of which. I usually just use another mod's, you know, if it has something for that slot, I will remember that slot's name, basically. Okay, source file. This is really, really important. This is basically where we are gonna get our, we're gonna put our path down. So we know we are generated, public, Drew tutorial. Remember, I have it with 2 U's here, that's why it's like that. Assets, and then call it straight over to the asset. So if you change this folder's name, which you should be, you need to remember to change the name here as well. So we're gonna give it the full name of the thing. And this one, dummy root is basically, I believe it's when you attach a skeleton to the thing. I'm not entirely sure. It's vital. It's an important step. So just remember, put in your full name. So don't include the gr2, and then dot dummy root, dummy underscore root, and then dot 0. Do it like that, and that works. That's what we want, right? We want it to work. Animation, waterfall. This is what technically you'd be for a mesh that has physics. This is where you would name those physics. As I've talked about, though, physics currently don't work when you have custom meshes. Next up, the node objects. How do I explain this the best? Okay, give me 2 seconds. Okay, so we remember how we have our mesh, and we remember how we had an export order for our mesh. So the belt was exported first, then the buttons, then the dress, and then a pouch, then the skirt, and then we went to LOD 1, and then that was the export order. We basically need to do that same thing now here, but we start at 0, so that means 1, so this one is 0, basically. I'm gonna show you how I do this in silence, and I'm gonna zoom in so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Okay. All right. So first things first, each of these is one node. We need to, in here, add the name that we added up here. And then I usually just give this part the same name as it has here. It already had that name because, you know, I already set it up. And then I add an underscore mesh if I don't already have that in Blender. And then dot 0. So 0 is the load order. And up here, the LOD, we know this is an LOD 0, and that's why it's listed here. You might be tempted now to go, all right, well, next up I set up my LOD 1, LOD 2, LOD 3 in that order. No, that's not what we do. So what you do next is you'd copy this. I will remove this. And then you go back in, you grab the name for the buttons. And at this point here, you will add it. I'll just add this right here. There we go. And, oh, I added that to wrong spot. Oopsie. and then you change this to a 1, and then you continue on like that. So let me show you how to do that. Again, do the same thing. Copy that name, add it over here, and change this to 2. Keep the LOD level as 0 because we're currently on LOD's level 0. I'm going to be right back as soon as I've done this. Okay, so we have now added all of the LOD 0 meshes. When it says up here, these determine the textures, this is this part, and we'll come back to that when we deal with the textures and materials. So don't think about that just yet, we'll come back to it. Next up, we're going to be adding our different LOD levels. So we're currently on mesh 4, which in Blender is mesh 5. So we go up to mesh number 6, this one. And we basically repeat every single step we've just done, except we change the LOD level to 1 here. Whether or not, I'm pretty sure whether or not you actually use the, oops, here. The name you actually give this here, I actually don't think it matters. I don't think it matters if it has the same name as this. I like to do it just because that's what I'm used to. So tell me in the comments if, if that doesn't work. So yeah, we basically do every single thing we just did before, except we remember to change the LOD level up here to 1. This thing needs to continue going down. And we replace the name again. That's basically it. This is also how in the game, to my knowledge, how you can set up a mesh that comes in, let's say, I could decide not to load. I just realized something, by the way, this is wrong. I like to put down the name of the materials these are using, but because I haven't set them up yet, they're just placeholders right now. Don't think about that. We'll change that in a second. This is just for my own, this is just so I can remember it. Okay, where was I? Right, so I believe technically I could decide, oh, I don't actually want the belt anymore. Well, then we just remove the belt here, but I believe if the load order isn't correct or accurate to the mesh's load order, that could cause some issues. I don't know, man. I have my way of doing it because that's what works for me. I'm not a genius. So yeah. I'm going to continue doing this, and I am going to be showing what this looks like when you are done adding all of the LOD levels. Okay, so I'm back. I have finished setting up all the LOD levels. Yeah. Basically what I did is I honestly, when I got to this point where I had all of my LOD zeros set up, I just copy pasted this and put it down here, and then moved all the LOD levels up by 1, moved the mesh order, and obviously changed the LODs and all that. Yeah. So next up on the meshes tab is the vertex color mask slots. So it says right here, these determine which part of the naked character are hidden for this armor. I've set up some here. If you find that, some part of the human or, not human, but the naked body is poking through, or maybe there's a part where it's supposed to be showing, but there is a, what's it called? Yeah, but there's nothing there. That's usually because of this. There is a, let me find, yeah. This part, look up this specific name. I'm actually gonna write that in here. Look for visual slots LSX in index search to see overview of all available slots. try out some different ones and find whichever ones work for you. Remember to spell it correctly, because I figured out a while ago that I accidentally spelled upper arms wrong. So, that's fun. But now you've basically finished declaring your mesh in the Visual Bank. Now, the most important part to remind you of is make sure you generate a new UID and make sure that your source file location is set up correctly. Yeah. All right, let's move on to textures and materials. Okay, moving on to the next part. So the textures and materials bank. I've seen some mods where this is a separate, like these are two separate LSX files. I like to keep mine in the same one because I find it a lot easier to navigate that way. So I talked about over here how these determine the textures, right? This is the part basically where we tell each of these different parts of the mesh which material map it has or it's supposed to load. So we need to set one up for each of them. So for example, this one we are going to be calling tutorial, and then we're going to call it belt. All right. This is just a note. I'm just gonna put that right here as the title of my material. Also right here. And this one, I always load the same one, char base. I believe that is the skin texture, I want to say. I'm not entirely sure. This is just what has worked for me. I generate a new UID, paste that in, and that UID we can actually already go ahead and paste it to every single parts here that we know is the belts. I'm also going to remember to change this to this. Okay. Let me just find the next level as well. This is because this is my way of, keeping track in all of this code of everything. So, you can choose to do that if you want to or not. That is completely up to you. It has absolutely zero effect on your mesh. Okay, so just go through and assign this material map with this ID to the ones that need to use that specific material. For example, this one. Remember that each LOD still uses the same material map. So, yeah, I think that was all of them. Yes. Okay. Now, we have told this material map here, this is your name, blah, 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 right? Pretty easy. All of this stuff, all of this, I don't touch. I got this from, I want to say, most of it from the Siri armour mod. I texted him. No, I texted the mod creator. They answered me. I kept saying texting. Oh my god! I messaged them on the Nexus. I asked them if I was allowed to, piggyback all of their files so that I could have a look into how I could do this for myself, and they said yes because they were very nice. So that's how I figured that out. That's also why I have all of this. I've looked at some of the other mods that have custom textures, like for example, I think I had a look at the Trickster's armor mod or something like that, and they didn't have nearly as much of information in the material bank. So I don't know if that's just specific to the Siri one that I base it off, but as I said, it worked for me, and that's what I'm using, and that's what I'm gonna teach. So yeah, every time that we in here tell it about a specific texture, because in material map you tell it what specific textures to use. You assign specific textures to that material map. Every time we do that, it's asking for an ID. You could go that you generate the ID now and then assign that ID to a texture later, but I like to do it the other way around. what I like to do for now is just rename this to what it is. So this is the normal map for the tutorial belt. This is also the belt. And scroll down again, belt. And scroll down again, and it's the belt. Okay. Actually, I don't think the belt has a mask cloth. Does it? Oh, doesn't matter. If it doesn't, well, just you can just delete this part. I'm keeping it in the tutorial because you'll need that this specific node for when you are setting up a material map that has a mask cloth. So yeah, I'm keeping that in. You can see here in the parameter name, you know, it's a mask cloth and it's a texture map, and the same thing goes here. It's a texture map. It's the base color. I don't know why I said it like that. Sorry. The base color. Same thing here. Physical map and normal map. So yeah. Okay. So we've set all of that up. I believe all of these, by the way, vector parameters. What was it? Scalar parameters. These are going to be familiar to some people who have done modding before. You can play around with these and edit them. I just leave them as they are, personally. Okay, so that's the material map, but we need textures for those materials. I've set them up here already. I gave them the wrong name because I was expecting to start off with the dress. That's fine, we'll just rename them. Here we go. And the same thing goes for here. Now, this part name, this is not something that I personally, I don't ever see this become relevant. It's not something where, you know, I use that name to call back to anything, but it is a nice way for you to keep track of what you are doing. Yeah, that's honestly the best way I can explain it. You will note that the files here are cleric. This is because the specific texture was generated for my cleric outfit. Oh, hey, my cat's behind me. But you can also see here, I need to change this to tutorial. All right, that's a good example right there. So we need to make sure that this is the same name as we have here. Yeah. I'm just gonna go through all of these real quick and change it to what it is supposed to be. I believe this is called base color. Make sure you always double check it. Yeah, it's not, it's BM. So make sure that's also true here. And go through all of these to make sure that you have set everything up correctly. Does this have... Yes, I do have a mask cloth for it. There we go, perfect. Okay, next up, change these names. So we'll have to change this to... just change... Oops, nope, I had the wrong thing copied. My bad. There we go. And make sure you give it all its own name. Okay, so now they all have their own names. These already have a UUID, but this is left over from my own mod that I was using as a base for this tutorial. So we'll just once again generate and put that in there. And then this is the normal map. So what I do then is I scroll up, I find the part that needs my normal map, and then I add that same ID there. And now that I'm done with this one, I just use Notepad's nifty little hide tool here so that I can hide that. Generate another one, put it in. This was the base color. Find where I need to put the base color. That's right there. Hide it again. Generate a new one. Put it there. And find where I need to put my PM. You could be smarter and make sure they're all in the same order, or that it goes like from, you know, when you scroll up, but who cares, right? Not that hard. Okay. And last but not least, the mask cloth. Okay. So that is one material done. Are you overwhelmed? I was very overwhelmed. This is why I like using Notepad for this, because I can very easily just go in, copy this entire thing. I mean, I'm sure Visual Studio Code allows you to do the same thing, but I find this a lot easier. So then I can go in. Maybe I shouldn't have said dress because I actually don't know what the next level is. The next one isn't dress, it's buttons. But buttons uses the same texture, if you remember correctly, as the belt. So we can actually skip making one for buttons and just copy this over here. And then do that same thing down here, etc., etc. So instead of that, let's see, we've got... right, so because this uses the same material map as the belt, I'll refer myself back to that same material map. Here we go. This is the dress one. Oh, this is still barred because I made a barred outfit tutorial. Okay, tutorial, and then it's dress, and then I copy that, and it's already here, obviously. Bam. Really didn't matter. Oh, great. I like how I said that was an easy way for me to just copy paste it, but then it actually didn't work. Because I normally actually do it like this. Whoopsie. One thing you gotta make sure is that you aren't copying up too high, which I am not. That's good. Okay. Put that there. Push this back. Boom. Make sure I don't have double. I don't. But I do want to push this over here. All right, cool. So now we're basically ready to do the whole thing again. Once again, you need to generate a new ID, give it all the different names, and then going down here. I actually wonder if this works because I'm pretty sure that worked. Oops. Oh wait, no, it does if I do it from here, I'm pretty sure. All right. Yes, okay. I think. Yes, it does. Okay. So I can then go in here and I can say dress, 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 and then we can close them again, right? Just so it's nice and easy to keep track of. But obviously the same thing again, you need to rename all of it. Again, you need to rename it because it has to have its own unique name, but also because that is the best way for you to find everything again. And also you need to generate these IDs again. So yeah, that is how you do that. I don't think I need to explain anything more for how to do this in textures. As I said, every time you make a new material map, so for this one, for example, you generate a new ID, put that here, and that new ID then goes on here, and then for each LOD level. That should be it for this part of setting up your mod. So let's talk about the root template, which is a lot easier. Okay, we've now made our way into the Drew tutorial base public, Drew tutorial, root templates, Drew tutorial merge LSX. So this is where you declared it as a visual item, a mesh that the game could use, but that does not make it an item yet. I say visual item, bit distracting. Anyway, this is where it becomes part of the visual bank. This is why we declare it as an item, sort of, because it still needs to be added to the armour txt to become a full-on item. We'll get to that. So first things first, in connection with the localization files, you will need to generate two handles here. One is for the display name, one is for the description. To generate a handle, you just click right here and then generate, and then copy, paste it, generate another one, copy, and paste it. Rename all of these to whatever you feel you want it to be named. Generate another UUID, insert it here. I use, for the parent template ID, I just always use leather. I don't know if that's bad. If you know better than me, please correct me on that. I just do because it works for me. All of these, these are just set up that way because that's what works for me. This is also where if you wanted this to work for, body types that weren't human female. So if you wanted it to, if you made something that works for GIF Yankee, so, you'd set that up here. You'd have to call back to another thing here. I haven't done that yet because I only make meshes for tieflings, drow, elves, and humans because I'm lazy. And this is basically the ID of the body for the naked body for the human female. This is then where we go back to our meshes, and I've cleaned this thing up. That's why it doesn't have a UUID, but the UUID you have here, you've generated, you'd want to paste that here. And then you'd save it, and then you'd be done with that part. Next, we go to the Drew tutorial base public Drew tutorial stats folder, generated, data, armor text. I can get rid of all of these because this is just a tutorial. You don't need that many. And this is basically where you want to copy certain entries. So I named this one, for example, Drew tutorial gear. I always just say, keep this again. I don't know why I do this. Again, this is where you would then put the UUID found in root template. That's not how you spell that. Root templates underscore merged file. I don't actually know if I can keep that there. Oh my god, help me. God, can you not go back further? Undo? Control Z? No, you can't. Give me a second, guys. High production value around here. There we go. All right. So you want to name this tutorial. There we go. And this is also where you could change the value of the item, the armor class. You could put it as something different than object category light armor. You could put it as a cloth here. I believe you can also set up things like the items, if it has a spell attached to it, things like that. Yep. But as I said, you would use the UUID. Oh, that's not a UUID. Sorry. You'd use this, right? So if this is my UUID in the root template, I would put that right here. If that makes sense. I hope it does. All right. That's basically it for armor TXT. I recommend piggybacking off of other mods to understand how that works a little bit better. I'm still learning this part because I'm mostly focusing on making meshes, which you can also see here. As my other meshes are for some reason here. All right, same concept again. So this is what would add, this is the treasure table, TXT. This is what adds it to different loot chests. So for example, then entrance trade, that's the trader in the druid den. You would change this tutorial to this. Tutorial chest potions. This is a chest you find early on in the game on the ship, and you can very easily there's a mod, I forgot what it's called, but there's a mod that enables you that if you just hide, you learn a spell that allows you to make a copy of that chest and have it in your inventory, which is really, really convenient for when you're testing something. So I definitely recommend getting that. If I remember, I'll try my best to put it in the description. That should be it for that. Okay. Save that as well. So for the last part, we're going to be talking about icons. So I haven't had much time or experience with this yet. I'm completely going off of the tutorial that Antimax has in his base mod. When you use my tutorial base, you get these free icons here. And this is the icons. I don't know what I'm trying to open that with. These are the two icons merged files. Again, You set it to a specific path where obviously you have to rename it based on what you called your icon file. You generate a new UID. There's a lot of them. These are basically corresponding with all of those slots we just saw in that file. You have to apparently, from what the tutorial told me, you have to, not have these map keys blank. In this one, the pack UI merged, you once again generate a new UID. It's the same. God, what was it? Yeah, it's the same one you generated here. Basically, it's what links these two together. Give it a different name. Tell it again what the icons are, and yeah, I'm pretty sure that's really all there was to it. If I don't forget anything, there's also where was it? Here we go. In here, you have where's that? Oh God, I think it's here. I'm so sorry. I honestly I don't do a lot with icons just yet because I don't really care because I'm testing everything. So I haven't really gotten to that part yet. But I believe that in here I would basically give it the same name as this, and that would be it. And then in my root template, I would, in my root template, where is my root template? Here it is. Icon. I would give it the same name. That's really all there is. So I would go to tutorial, item gear, and I would put that full name here, and I would make sure that not that icon. This icon is named the same. Basically, that is the basic concept. Yeah. that was really all there was to the folders. Now we're gonna talk about how to pack them up. Here I am again because I forgot very, very important steps. Okay, so first things first, going back into our tutorial base, I completely skipped talking about the localization file. So with the localization file, there's actually only two things you need to do here. So you need to go back to our tutorial base, go back into root templates, and these two here. So this is the display name, and we're just gonna insert that right here. I feel like that's wrong. Yeah, that's wrong. Sorry, right here. And this is then where we would, type it. So I don't know what's a good name. Tutorial, right? And then here for the description, you do the same thing and type it in here, and then you just save it. And that is your localization file. Obviously, you add more as the more items you have. Pretty much it. One more important step not to ignore is the using LSLib Toolkit, aka Export Tool Converter app. Go to this tab and make sure that you take these LSX files and that you package them into LSF. I'm pretty sure this is a completely necessary step. I personally, I like to do it because if there's a problem with your LSX, it will tell you. So if there's like, I don't know, you didn't close a node or something like that, it'll give you a warning. So that's really nice. Do this for the meshes, the materials, and the UI ones, and the root templates ones. Do it for all of those. And then before you're done, you also need to do the same thing with the localization file. So let's go find that real quick. Just go in your tutorial base folder, this one, give it the same name, and then save it as a local. So if you have followed along and done every step that I described to its full length, you will be able to drag and drop your file, drop it right here. I'm pretty sure it will tell me I can't do it. Oh, no, it did let me. Okay. because I didn't have the same UUIDs. I didn't have everything completely set up, but it did let me because I do think the metadata is set up. But right now, this is not, because this is a base, it's not a functioning mod. But in theory, if it was, and I had done everything I needed to do, I could simply open my mod manager. Wait a second for it to open. And then I could import mod, and I could load in my Drew tutorial base. And yeah, there it is. I just drag it over here for it to work. And that's basically everything. Now, this tutorial is a little bit scuffed if you haven't noticed. I'm not entirely comfortable with this process yet. I had to use a lot of my own blood, sweat, and tears to get this far. I hope this helped someone out there. Yeah, if I figure out I'm doing this all wrong, if we have some kind of modding tool or any important updates or anything like that come out, I will either add it in the comments, or I will take this video down and update it. Or I will not. That depends. Yeah. Thank you for watching. Bye.